So I just got done watching UFC 318, like a lot of you probably have if you're watching this video. And I just want to start off by saying, what the fuck was that, guys? What the fuck was that card? Like, I honestly don't even know what I just witnessed. This is one of the craziest cards I've ever seen in my life, and not in a good way. And I've been watching the UFC since the start of COVID. I've only missed like a couple of events since then. I watch this shit pretty religiously, and sure, I've missed a few fights here and there, but I've witnessed a lot of crazy stuff over the years. I've seen massive favorites have crazy finishes. I've seen underdogs have crazy finishes. I've seen some crazy comeback wins, right? We've all witnessed some of the craziest shenanigans over the years that can occur in that octagon. And I feel like today just took the cake. Like it trumped it times 100 because some of the stuff that was happening today just does not make any freaking sense at all. And it started off with the very beginning of this card. We had massive favorites all winning in the first round, back to back to back to back to back, like 5 in a row. When has that ever happened, guys? When has that ever happened before in the UFC? I don't think it has. I never witnessed it. Maybe it happened in the past, like decades ago or something, but I've never witnessed it. And I understand that these were very favorable matchups, but I feel like some of these opponents just didn't even want to be there. It's like they were taking dives just to get their money and to go home. That's what it felt like. Some of these guys were getting finished so quickly. It made no sense. I know a lot of people predicted first round finishes, but for it to happen over and over and over again, and some of these favorites were like Jimmy Crute and freaking Ryan Spann. It's like, how can you have any faith in these guys? Like, one of these guys had to lose, right? And I was chasing the underdogs like a dumbass, and I was getting my ass handed to me, and I'm sure Vegas was too. A lot of people were cashing those first round tickets, and they were winning like crazy in the beginning of this card. Like, it made no freaking sense at all, right? It's like, when is it going to end? You get another first round finish, another first round finish, another submission, another submission. It's like, what is happening, right? Like, it made no sense. I already knew this was going to be a crazy card, and I told myself I lost my ass in the beginning, and now all the underdogs are going to win. I'm going to lose my ass again. And that's exactly what happened, because when the main card started, it was all the underdogs that were hitting. Underdogs that had no right to hit, right? Like, I had Dan Ige to knock out Pitbull because I understand Pitbull was great in Bellator and everything, but his chin is pretty dusty. He's been getting rocked a lot lately, getting dropped and stuff. And Dan Ige hits like a truck. And what happens? Dan Ige goes out there and gets rocked like immediately. And I'm sitting there scratching my head like, what is happening? Like, Dan Ige hits like a truck, and he usually can take shots, and he damn near got finished. Like some of the craziest stuff I ever witnessed, right? Same thing with Holland. Holland goes out there and gets rocked by Daniel Rodriguez, of all people. Old man Daniel Rodriguez. He's a decent boxer. He's got some power behind his punches. I get it, but rocking fucking Holland, who never gets dropped, like, I don't understand what I was watching. And my dad was watching this. Like, I've only watched UFC with my dad like maybe 2 or 3 times. He doesn't like MMA. And every single time I seem to be watching this shit with him, he's always asking me who I have to win and who I'm betting on. And it always seems like whenever he is watching, I have the worst luck. I have bad luck anyways, but it always seems like I have the worst luck and my guys are always losing. And he's sitting here asking me like why I'm so bad at picking fighters. Do I do any research? And I'm sitting here like, bro, like if you knew anything about the UFC, you would know that like Holland can take a punch. He's very durable and he's got crazy reach and crazy jiu-jitsu. There's like no reason for him to be losing this fight the way that he is. Same thing with like Dan Ige, Dustin Poirier get rocked immediately from Max Holloway and his freaking pillow punches. Like all this crazy stuff just kept happening over and over. It's like the beginning of this card, you have all these massive favorites. They're just winning in the easiest of ways. Like these guys are just taking dives. You have people like Robert Valentin that's just going out there, getting rocked immediately, then waving the guy on, getting rocked again, waving him on, getting rocked again. It's like, bro, shoot a fucking takedown for God's sakes. And he just wouldn't do it. And then gets flatlined. And then later on in the fight, you have these bigger favorites that should be able to take a punch because we've watched many fights of these guys taking punches from way, more dangerous opponents, and they're getting dropped and rock left, right, and center. Holland's doing the jitterbug all over the fucking octagon by Daniel Rodriguez. And I'm sitting like, what is happening? Like, I'm looking like the biggest dumbass, and I'm losing my ass because all these guys are losing. And it just made no freaking sense. It made no freaking sense. And you're watching the Holland fight, and even my dad's sitting here going, this is rigged as shit. Like, this is completely rigged. It just looked like it was scripted, right? Because it's like he'd go out there, get rocked all over the fucking octagon, finish damn near 3 times, and all of a sudden, Daniel Rodriguez would stop trying. He'd stop throwing. He'd take his hands and put them down and then get rocked himself, like intentionally rocked. And then all of a sudden, it's like Holland's about to get the finish, and you think he's going to get the finish. I'm sure people are slamming the odds, with the live bets. I'm sure left, right, and center people are doing. I think the fight's going to finish. And usually that's the case, right? Because we've all witnessed fights where somebody goes for a finish, then they gas themselves out, then they get finished themselves. We've seen those kinds of fights. So that's not what happened tonight, because every single time these fighters would get rocked back and forth a few times, and then all of a sudden they would just not be able to hurt each other. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden it would find its way to decision. And then everybody would get burned because everyone's looking for finishes and they're betting on certain fighters because the way it's going, and they all get their ass handed to them because it would go to decision over and over and over again. We were just getting decisions. And it's like, this is so opposite of what was happening at the beginning of this card. And none of it makes sense because you have these back and forths. Like, it makes it like a Hollywood movie or something, and it gets everyone involved and super excited and everything. It's just the only way that this shit could happen, the way that it's happening, is if it was actually scripted. And these guys are actually intentionally putting their hands, like, that's what it felt like. These guys were actors out there just taking punches on purpose. That's what it felt like, especially in that Holland fight, right? And then the main event happens, and I felt like the same thing because Max immediately rocks Dustin, and he could have finished him, but for whatever reason, he takes his foot off the gas. This is Max Holloway here that was throwing punches like a madman in the 5th round, takes his foot off the gas, stops trying, puts his hands down, and lets Dustin rock him back. And all of a sudden, Dustin has him in super trouble, but he ain't able to finish him either. All of a sudden, the 3rd round starts. You just saw the 2nd round where they nearly finished each other. You think it's going to go that way in the 3rd or 4th round, and then nothing happens. The 3rd round goes by, nothing happens. The 4th round goes by, nothing happens. The 5th round goes by, nothing happens. And then Dustin is clinching him, and it didn't even feel like the Dustin that we know. Dustin Poirier getting rocked by pillow hands Max that easily. Like, I get it. Some people are saying he's washed, but he's not. He just went 5 rounds with Islam. Like, I don't understand. Like, he's not that bad. I get it. Max is 155. He's gotten the weight better than he did in the past. He was able to fill it in and get some more muscle. I get that. He has a little bit more power behind his punches. But this is freaking Dustin Poirier. This is in Louisiana. It's a retirement fight for the BMF belt. I get it. He wanted to retire, and usually don't bet on people that are going to retire. But I thought he was going to go out there and have a better performance than that. I just feel like he wasn't trying when he had the chance to get the finish, and then in the end he's like clinching, and the very last thing we're going to see and remember of Dustin Poirier in the octagon is him clinching because he wasn't able to withstand the punches. Like, he was literally getting overwhelmed by Max's punches, and he had to clinch. It's just a bad look, right? And again, it just felt like the same thing. The back and forth, they're about to finish each other, but then it goes to decision. This shit just feels scripted, right? It feels scripted. And the problem is, and you're seeing this more and more and more now, because so much of this gambling is becoming more apparent throughout the world, right? A lot more states are starting to allow and legalize gambling, and more bookies are opening up, and all these different, promotions and leagues and stuff are getting sponsored by these big bookies. It's like the NFL and NBA are all sponsored by DraftKings and FanDuel now. They're just every single commercial, every single ads for gambling. And it's like, obviously, this is a reason why in the past this would be illegal, right? You would actually say it's a conflict of interest when you're actually sponsored by one of these gambling books, because it's so easy for you to rig outcomes when it comes to the decisions, when it comes to telling fighters to throw punches or not throw punches, or when it comes to basketball or football, whatever the case may be, right? Change stats in the middle of games, pull players, bench players. You see this shit all the time, and that's why so many people are starting to question this stuff, because it's a conflict of interest. There's no way that it can't be. I don't understand how this shit's legal, right? But it is. It's a crazy clown world that we live in, but this is becoming more and more apparent, and it's growing and growing and growing. This shit is happening more and more often now. And you have to start to wonder, is this shit actually done intentionally? Is this shit actually scripted, right? And the crazy thing is, you don't actually have to change the outcome of a match or the outcome of a game and still screw people and still make money. You know what I mean? By making things appear like they're going to go in one way and then changing them. Changing stats in the middle of a game, benching somebody, having somebody lose a certain round or not throw so many punches in a certain round to get a knockdown, this, that, and the other. You can make crazy money off somebody's props and still not change the actual outcome of the fight or the game or whatever. And that's the craziest thing about it, right? Everyone thinks that in order to make money, you have to make sure that a certain outcome happens, but it's not the case. You can do so many different things, so much different manipulation within the match or within the game or the fight or whatever, you know what I mean, and still make a lot of money and screw people that are betting those lines, you know what I mean, because you think one thing's going to happen and then something completely different happens. They get baited into doing something. Like in this case, you think someone's going to get a finish and then the opposite happens and then they don't even get a finish, and then you go on both sides and you get burnt twice. It's craziness that's going on. And this whole card just made no sense. And to me, I think that shit was scripted. I think the main event was scripted. I honestly think it was scripted for Max to win this. I know you would think it was scripted to be for Dustin, that the Holloway would have win, maybe even get a gilly finish or something, and to get the, like, I get it. That would be like the Hollywood ultimate finish, but I feel like this was scripted for Max to win this. Like, I really do. I feel like Dustin didn't show up to actually perform in this fight. He had a lot of things on his side. It just didn't go to way. It just didn't even feel like him out there, but I know you could say that when people lose. Well, he just didn't look like himself. I understand people say all the time, but it just did not feel like that, right? And then the way that the match was going just made no freaking sense. The same thing with the Holland fight. And some of these other fights just seem sus as fuck. And again, when you pair it up to the way the beginning of this card went, I don't know if they changed these things on the fly and it just happened to go the way that it did. I don't know, but if you're going to sit here and try to tell me that this shit was not scripted in one way or the other, like, I don't know, like I got like a nice piece of land to sell you in Alaska, because honestly, guys, like, there was something funny going on with tonight's card. And the craziest thing about it is it killed my love for the UFC and for MMA. Like, a chunk of it, the chunk of my love for this sport died tonight watching this shit. Like, honestly, as big of a fan as I am, and I've been betting on this shit for, the last couple of years. I've been watching, like I said, since like 2020, like part of it is just died for me tonight. You know what I mean? Between the performances that I was witnessing from some of these people, and then just the way that things were going, and just none of it made any sense to me. It feels like some people just didn't have their heart in it. It feels like they were just taking dives. And I don't know. It's just a lot of craziness was going on. And I mean, this is right after an event. It's just the way that I feel. And I'm just getting my feelings out there. I know a lot of people are going to say, well, you just lost your bet, so that's why you're pissed off. You know what I mean? You don't know what you're talking about. You never took a punch to the face. You know, all these different things I see people saying in the comment section when I talk about this. And I get it. I'm going to get a lot of hate for it, but that's just the way that I feel. And I know there's going to be some people out there that see it the way that I see it, you know? And I feel like I'm smarter than a lot of people because I see these things. You know what I mean? Just like the way the world works and the way that the government is screwing everybody. Like I've seen that shit for many years. You know, a lot of people now, you know, they say, oh, the Gen Zers and everything, like, oh man, they know, you know, the way the world works, and, you know, they don't want to work 40-hour jobs or 50, 60-hour jobs and not make enough to live. It's like, well, I was talking about this shit like 10 years ago when I first started working. Like, I was already saying that this shit was fucked up, you know, the way that the world worked and health insurance and everything else being scams. Like, I've been way ahead of the curve with this stuff. And I kind of feel like the same way here. I feel like I'm way ahead of the curve with a lot of people because a lot of people don't want to believe that this shit is rigged. They go, well, Vegas is going to win either way. It's just the way that it is. The house always wins. So it's like, yeah, but it's clearly evident that they're trying to take more. It's just like all these big corporations and CEOs. You know what I mean? They can easily take what they have, you know what I mean? But they want more and they want more and they want more. The investors want more and they want more and they want more, right? And all the people that have stocks and everything, like the shareholders, they want more and more every single year. It's the same thing. The same thing with robbers and stuff, right? Why do a lot of bank robbers and stuff get caught? Because they want more and more and more. They can keep doing what they're doing and get the small, you know, piece of the pie over and over and over. They want the full pie. They go for the full pie, and it just gets worse and worse. You give them an inch, they take a mile. It's the same idea, right? Same concept, and it builds on itself and it builds on itself, and that's what's happening here, right? They want more and more, and Vegas wants more. They want their fist in everything, and now they have it because now they're sponsoring all these different leagues and promotions, and it's just getting more and more bullshit and sketchier and sketchier by the day. And the UFC in general, they don't seem to care anymore. They're giving us the shittiest of matchups. It feels like it's just going south. Dana White's just putting on all these crazy circus promotions, even though he says he doesn't. He's always talking one way, but doing something completely different, you know, that completely conflicts with what he's saying. And it's like, bro, like, look what you're doing. You're promoting boxing and slap fighting and this, that, and the other. And you're putting on these bullshit, you know, events, and some of these fights make no sense. I mean, you have certain rank ups, and you got people that are like ranked 10th, you know, fighting for the belt. And it's like all this crazy shit that doesn't make any sense, right? You never do if you actually had integrity or it's a real sport. They don't give a shit about the real sport anymore. It's about making that money and having like these crazy scripted events, you know, because it's going to bring more eyeballs into the event and make it seem more, you know, exciting than it actually is. And you're going to be able to get your money, and the sponsors and all the bookies get their money, and everyone's happy, except everyone that's watching this shit. And they can actually see what's going on, because some people are eating this up and thinking it's the greatest thing, you know, since sliced bread, but that's not the case. Or the people that are losing their ass, you know, betting on it. Whatever the case may be, there's a lot of people that are getting hurt by this, and a lot of people just don't want to open their eyes and see it. But that's just the way I feel about it, you know. But I'd love to hear your guys' opinions on this, if you notice the same things, because that's what I noticed when I watched this shit, and it really pissed me off. And like I said, it killed a part of my love for MMA and UFC tonight, which sucks. I could say like 30% of my love, at least, is just, and maybe I'll get it back. You know, maybe I'll just brush it off, and I'll probably be back next week gambling. Like, who am I to kid, you know? But I just don't have that same feeling for it anymore. I just don't, you know. It just killed that excitement for me tonight, seeing this bullshit. And just the way that people want to go out there and perform and everything else. Like, I don't know. It just seems so sus to me, and it pissed me off like no other, to be completely honest. And that's not even because I lost bets. I lose bets every single week, guys. Like I've lost so much money doing the bullshit. So that's not even, has nothing to do with it. You know, I just brush it off and move on to the next event. Usually is what I do. But tonight was different. Tonight was like, what the fuck did I just witness? Like, you can swindle me over and over and over and take my money and feed me bullshit, you know, spoon feed me bullshit, and, you know, piss down my back and tell me it's raining and everything. But eventually, you know what I mean, I'm going to catch on, and it's going to be like, you know, that's enough's enough. And that's kind of what I feel like tonight. And again, it's not going to push me to not watch it or bet on it again, but it killed a lot of it. And it got to the point where I had to make this video and talk about it, because, like, I don't know what the fuck that was, but UFC 318 was an absolute shit show. And if you want to sit here and argue that it wasn't scripted in one way or the other, you know, then, like I said, I got a plot of land for you in Alaska to buy, because you got to be that dumb not to think that at least something was going on here, right? Behind the scenes, something was going on here. But it is what it is, you know? It is what it is.